The year is 1968. I'm 8 years old. My little brother's 7 years old. I have a sister that may be 2 or 3 years old. Very traditional family of that time in the sense that my mother was a wonderful woman. She was a great mom. She didn't work. Hell, she didn't even drive. She was the saving grace for our family. The kids in my family wouldn't have turned out nearly as well if not for my mother. My father was a different story. A malignant narcissist. He didn't really care about anybody but himself, and he was kind of explosive when he would get mad. Now, my father, in his late 20s at the time, worked in advertising. And whenever I watch the TV show Mad Men, it's very nostalgic to me because that took place in the 1960s, and my dad was in the advertising business in the 1960s, and it was all very similar. The suits, the skinny ties, the mini skirts, the drinking, the smoking, the partying. We saw all of that when my father was working in that business back in the 60s. They used to have parties at our house. My brother and I loved those fucking parties. You know, they'd be downstairs playing guitars, eating all kinds of shit. They had money, so there was tons of food. And we'd sit on the steps and we'd watch them. We couldn't participate during the party was going on. But in the morning, when my dad had a hangover and wasn't getting up till late, my brother and I would tear downstairs, and there was everything all over the place. Olives, fucking lunch meat, salami, cheese, fucking pop. We had a heyday the day after a party. Now, everybody loved those parties. They were a lot of fun, but I think some of the neighbors took exception to it because they tended to get a little wild. One day we wake up and there's a sign in our yard and it says, "For sale by neighbors." Partly a joke, partly serious. Anyway, we're in this family and we're doing pretty well because my dad makes a fair amount of money. So people think everything's great because dad makes a lot of money and he has some wealthy friends. And there was a day, a friend of his, a very wealthy friend who owned an ad agency who was a client of my dad's, but also my dad's best friend. He had this huge cabin cruiser boat on the St. Croix River. And from time to time, we would go out on the boat with George is his name, and his wife's name is Judy. They had some kids. And we go out on the boat on the St. Croix River and have a hell of a time. Later on, my dad did buy a boat too. It was pretty shitty as a partner in that boat, and the partner fucked him over, but that's beside the point. Anyway, we're on the river on this boat. George pulls this boat onto a sandbar, and they're just going to sit there and drink and party and let the kids play and all that shit. So my brother and I go down onto the beach and into the water next to the boat. We're in like 1.5 feet, 2 feet of water. It's no big deal. We're playing, throwing sand and doing all that shit. Now, on the other side of us is an even bigger boat, a fucking huge boat. And it's just sitting there, and we're thinking it's all cool and stuff, and we're playing. Well, that bigger boat starts to pull out. My brother and I are thinking, this is cool. Look at that big fucking thing move, making little waves and shit. It's kind of fun. It's kind of cool. Until that boat gets a little farther out. My brother and I, 50, 60 pounds, the current from the boat pulling out starts pulling us out toward the middle of the fucking river. Now understand, we're little. We hadn't had any swimming lessons. We didn't know what the fuck we're doing. And it's pulling us out farther and farther and farther into the river. We're just flailing around, just trying to keep our heads above water. We don't know what the fuck's going on. I don't even think we realized how dire it was that we could die in this situation. So I'm looking up to the boat to my mom for some help, and my mom is absolutely terrified. She doesn't know what to do because she can't swim. My dad looks irritated. George, he's scared, he's upset, and his wife, Judy, wasn't upset. And this is a memory that will never leave my mind. Judy was this tall, very beautiful blonde woman. She was a nice lady. She's a tall, beautiful blonde woman. And I see her stand up and look out and see us. So she gets to the back of the boat and she's got this cover up over her swimsuit. She takes her shirt off. Her swimsuit, I remember it very specifically, was a one-piece red swimsuit. And she stood up on the back of the boat. And it was a fucking glorious thing. I'm sitting here drowning and I'm seeing this woman standing up there. She does a perfect swan dive into the water. I'm thinking, fuck, she's coming to get us. Maybe we'll get saved. Maybe we will get saved. So she swims like a fucking Olympic swimmer over to me and grabs me with one arm. And she says, listen, we're going to get your brother. I need an arm to swim. So you grab onto your brother as hard as you can, and I'm going to get you back into shore. And we're freaking out. How is this possible? This woman is going to bring us back to shore and save us while my dad's standing up there being pissed off about something. So she goes over, grabs me, brings me to my brother. I grab him, and she brings us back to shore. Now, we're freaking out, but not nearly as freaked out as my mom. My mom was watching her kids maybe die. And I don't even know that my brother and I realized that we could die in that situation. But in retrospect, it was a pretty dire situation. So we get back, and my mom's hugging us and kissing us, and George is hugging us and kissing us, and so is Judy. And my dad is looking annoyed. And I know what it is. He thinks we embarrassed him in front of his friend and his client. That's how a malignant narcissist responds. Now, this didn't surprise me because this was standard fare for my dad from that point until I last saw him, maybe 25 years before he died. So it was a weird experience, but I always had this image of this like superhero woman standing on the back of a boat, diving in, perfect dive, coming in and saving us from sure death and bringing us to shore. It was a great experience, and it was a negative experience because I always looked at that. I had in my mind the picture of my dad's face and how he had no fear at all. He was just pissed off that we interrupted his little partying and may have embarrassed him. It's funny, George and Judy divorced later on down the road. I never really talked to them much after that. I haven't seen them in 40, 50 years. They got divorced. Judy ended up marrying CEO of a major supermarket company in Minneapolis. And I think currently she's like in her 80s, and she lives probably 3 miles away from me on Lake Minnetonka in a big house. She's got lots of money. Her husband's got lots of money. And I never got to say to her what I really felt about that and how important it was in my life and how it is important now. Because you think about it, that one little experience, that one effort to save us. I'm now 65 years old. I've been married 42 years. I have 2 grown sons. I have two grandchildren. I have a work history. Same with my brother. Married 37, 38 years. He's got a history. He's got 4 kids and 4 grandkids. And without that effort by that woman, Judy, none of that would have happened. Some of those people in our lives would have never existed if not for that moment in time. So I thank Judy for that. She has no idea what she did on that moment, on that day, but she was there when we needed her, and I appreciate it.